Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. In the biggest crackdown on the radical Islamist group PFI, the NIA, the ED and several state police conducted joint operations in as many as 15 states and union territories across the country, arresting by last count over 100 members of the PFI today. Virtually the entire top brass of the PFI has been arrested. And it will not be a surprise if the MHA announces a nationwide ban on this outfit and its affiliates soon. This crackdown comes after over 12 years of violent crimes, murders, rioting that PFI and STPI members have been accused of, arrested in, and some even convicted since 2010. The NIA has already asked for a ban on the Popular Front of India way back in 2017. PFI has been growing in its menacing character all that while. But more specifically, in August last month, the NIA busted a PFI module and arrested 26 people in Nizamabad, where PFI was funding and conducting radicalization classes of youth, giving them training to conduct terror strikes and provoking them against the political community with hate speeches. In other words, the PFI is accused of waging a war against the nation. Take a look at the extent of these raids today first up. As I mentioned, 15 states in total, including the hubs of the PFI in Kerala, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, from where most of their cadres have been arrested today. In total, over 100 people, 106 to be precise that we can count, have been arrested in a sweeping action in raids that actually began with the break of dawn. Agencies themselves are calling this the biggest investigation process till date in India. And certainly the manner in which it was coordinated is also quite interesting. We'll break down those details in just a bit. Take a look at the leadership of the PFI. All of them have been arrested today. So there's Omar Salam, who's the PFI chairman. A lot of these names are actually not in the news cycle too much. Parvez Ahmed, PFI president. There's Emma Rahman, who's the vice chairman of the body. Anis Ahmed, possibly the most known face of the body because he used to give out statements on their behalf for two news channels, the general secretary of the body. N. Elaram, PFI secretary. There's Afsar Pasha, also a secretary, and Mohammad Shakib, also a secretary of the body. We're getting more names of their top leadership that have been arrested. Now, the PFI has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. For what many may forget is that they've been connected to violent communal crimes for a very long time. It all began in July 2010 when Professor T.J. Joseph was attacked and his hand chopped off. 13 were convicted. From April 2013 is a case of organized training camp of explosives and weapons in which PFI SDPI members were implicated. 21 were convicted in that case. October 2016, the killing of RSS member Rudresh, a charge sheet has been filed against their members in this case. Similarly, criminal conspiracy with ISIS, ISIL, Daesh. This also is a case where a charge sheet has been filed against members. February 2021, a money laundering case has been filed in connection with the Hathras case. In April 2021, sedition, criminal conspiracy, funding of terror charges against them, again connected to the Hathras case, the charge sheet has been filed. And finally, in May 2022, a few months ago, money laundering case worth 22 crore rupees, a charge sheet has been filed against as many as 8 members of the PFI. You name it, and virtually every kind of communal, violent, anti-national activity, the infamous PFI and its political wing, the STPI, has been accused of. So take a look at their web, the kind of crimes that they've been coming in news too. From communal cases, violence cases in states like Andhra Pradesh, UP, Karnataka, anti-encroachment violence in Assam, to communal murders, specifically in the states of Kerala and Karnataka. There have been rioting cases. Delhi, the anti-CA rioting in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, communal rioting during Hindu processions, Bengaluru riots in Karnataka, all have thrown up links to the PFI. The PFI recently also shot to infamy for being at the forefront of violent agitations, anti-CA, Hathras, violence over hijab. They're also accused of other crimes like gold smuggling racket that broke out in Kerala and money laundering, as I just mentioned. It is also important to reiterate and understand the evolution of the PFI. Its very roots are terror-related. So you would remember SIMI, the Students' Islamic Movement of India, was formed in 1977, eventually banned in 2001 for their radical jihad mindset and ultimate aim of Islamic rule in India. Meanwhile, National Democratic Front came up in 1993 in northern Kerala. This is basically formed after the Babri demolition. The Indian Mujahideen also came up around this time, around 2000, in Bhatkal, Karnataka. This terror body was closely linked with Simi. Manitha Nithi Pasarai in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka Forum for Dignity, they came up around the same time in 2001. These two bodies were Simi offshoots. Finally, around 2006, the NDF, the KFD and the MNP I mentioned merged to form the PFI. A few years later, the political wing of PFI, the Social Democratic Party of India, was birthed. This body fights elections and is registered with the Election Commission. And then there is, of course, the CFI, the Campus Front of India, that was formed in 2009. Now, they are alleged to be the student wing of the PFI. Recently, in the hijab case, they've been very active, but they deny any link to the PFI. The big debate that's coming up is this national crackdown, a precursor to the imminent PFI ban. We'll have guests joining us in just a bit. But first up, here's a recap of what happened today.
Threat to the integrity of the country. There is no doubt on these things. So I'm deeply worried about this, the funding of the PFI.
ध्यान हटाने के लिए तमाम ऐसी गतिविधियां कर रही हैं, पर इतना आग्रह है सरकार से, मेहरबानी करके देश के सामने जो समस्या है, महंगाई, बेरोजगारी, चीन ने जो बलपूर्वक जमीन अधिकृत कर ली है, कभी हिम्मत करेंगे उस पर भी बोलने के लिए?
ऐसा तो कुछ नहीं बताया उन्होंने। सर्च करेंगे, अरेस्ट करेंगे, ऐसा कुछ।
First up, I want to go across to my colleagues joining us who have been tracking these raids across the country through the day. Ashish Maharishi tracks the agencies very closely for us. Nikhil Joshi is News 18 Kannada editor. Vivek Narayan is managing editor South. Pradeep Pillai is News 18 Kerala editor. Remember, these states, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Kerala, are the states where there's been the major impact of the PFI felt over the last few years. And my colleague Arunima, editor Home Affairs, is also joining us. Arunima, you have been gathering more inputs of the numbers that are coming out from these raids. Just give me a sense of what the NIA and the other agencies are confirming to you, because they themselves are calling this one of the biggest operations in Indian history.
Yes, you will get a sense of how crucial this operation was when I tell you that all the superintendents of police level officers of NIA across the country were involved in these searches. A total of 300 personnel at all levels, SP, DIGs, IGs, even the Director General of NIA were up all night trying to coordinate this operation. Total strength of NIA countrywide could be around 1,500, and this includes constables and majority of lower level personnel. So all the top brass of the agency were on the job. When I asked them why this kind of manpower was required, because even for Kashmir related cases where there is threat of law and order, where there is threat of stone pelting, the numbers maximum have gone to 100, 150. The answer I was given was that there were 5 different RCs that had to be probed. There were 5 different FIRs that were lodged, and the span of the case itself, searches were being carried out literally from north to south, from east to west. If there was Assam on the east, there was Goa on the western side. If there was Kerala down south, 19 people have been arrested in the state in an FIR which was registered in Delhi, including the PFI chairman. So if there's Kerala down south, there was also raids being carried out in Delhi. Madhya Pradesh also in the heart of the country, along with Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. So the length and breadth of the country had to be traversed. These were the top leaders of PFI who were under the scanner, the chairman, the national executive members, the vice chairpersons, people who daily, send to their cadre the plan of action.
Right.
So these were the people who were being swooped down upon. 3:30 last night is when the searches began. By early first half of the day, the searches were over. Then the chairman was brought to Delhi in no time on transit remand and produced in the Patiala House Court. And till 26th, NIA has got custody. So till 26th, it has time to question them and get answers about the arms training that was being given, about the terror conspiracy that was hatched, and of course, the funding.
Very quickly, Arunima, it is safe to say that virtually the entire leadership of the PFI is under arrest today?
Yes, absolutely. And not just the national leadership, but also a lot of the districts and the zonal level leaders are also in custody today. Most of them have been arrested by the NIA. Out of a total arrest of 106, 45 arrests have been made by the NIA. Many others have been found, there is evidence against them prima facie on charges of money laundering.
Right.
So Enforcement Directorate have carried out their arrests, and these are people mostly from Delhi, Haryana Zonal Council. Some arrests have been made by the local anti-terrorism squad as well, Maharashtra and Assam, for example.
Yeah. Ashish, on the ED role, I'm coming to you. First of all, as I mentioned, this is the one-of-a-kind, first-of-a-kind, multi-agency, pan-India, as Arunima was saying, the biggest crackdown in one day at break of dawn kind of, operation. What is the ED telling you? Because they've also made a number of arrests today, and the money angle is extremely important as far as such probes are concerned.
ED has played the role because an important role because they follow the money trail and they basically crack down on anti-national activities where which becomes a predicate offence under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And here there was, if you remember, the NIA had first registered a case and then ultimately the Enforcement Directorate registered an ECIR under PMLA and a charge sheet has finally been filed. So if you go through the content of the charge sheet that was filed earlier, it absolutely reveals that the PFI office bearers have been using the funds which have been coming from various sources, which include countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, Qatar. The money has been flowing from various countries into India, and it has been it is coming through hawala channels as well as through it is being camouflaged as normal remittance, or you can say business remittance or personal remittances into the various bank accounts in India. But when the probe happened, they found that on physical verification, it was found that though the account exists, the person does not exist. There have been various cases where small amounts have been infused into the bank accounts as cash because the money came through hawala. It was distributed into a number of accounts, and finally the beneficiary was PFI. So there are ways and means to bring that money into India. In fact, there has also been Chinese angle as well. There one of the person, if you remember, the person who was arrested from Mathura toll in the Hathras case, Rauf Sharif, he got around 1 crore rupees from an Oman-based company. Okay. And when the investigation happened, it was found that this company was basically owned by certain Chinese individual. So it seems to be that the entire conspiracy was hatched. There is a proper system, there is a proper hierarchy into the entire system.
The way the PFI, the amount of money it's been spending, and the associations it has had over agitations.
120 crore rupees that came into the bank account of PFI, and all this money has been used for anti-India activities.
Yes, and agitations that they have become the front for. And the sense that we're getting is that it's not really a raid that has been done in a jiffy. In fact, for the longest time, the MHA and the NIA and the central government has been facing a question, why don't you act on the PFI? Because case after case was coming out and all of the evidences have been studied over a period of months. Vivek, I'm coming to you for the larger picture because it's really in the southern states that the PFI has had, of course, its birthing and its maximum impact. What are the kind of responses you're getting to this national crackdown? Is this something that people, by and large, in the political circles, to welcome?
Interesting, the reactions which are coming across from the southern states, especially Kerala, which is perhaps the birthplace of PFI and CME, perhaps. From there, what we are hearing is the CPM is refusing to comment. The left parties, which at times were eager to go ahead and criticize this kind of an action, are very clearly distancing themselves from the PFI. The Congress, on the other side, which is usually Congress and its ally, the Muslim League, is seen to be soft on minority affairs, but in this case, they also do not want to be seen supporting, because this organization is perhaps, as they say, too hot for them to handle. If you look at the history of PFI, quite clearly, as you mentioned, it is a new generation, a rebirth of what was earlier CIMI. From CB, it became NDF and IM in Kerala. In North, it became IM. In Kerala, it was NDF, and then it's become PFI. PFI, the way it is working, I would tell you, Shivani, it has two faces. One, a public face where they are seen as people who are into social work, who are actively working for people, and an underground movement which nobody can actually see what happens. If you look at the genesis in Kerala, there was this incident of Professor Joseph in 2010, Newman College, Todupuzha, Kerala, where his hand was chopped. What he had done, according to them, is he had composed a question paper which was quote-unquote anti-Islamic in nature. A model question paper for his students, which was, according to them, anti-Islamic. The professor's hand was chopped. At that point onwards, the focus has been on this organization. Multiple cases coming up, the Narath weapons case. There have been other cases like Wagaman weapon training camp. In Narath, a human effigy was found where PFI cadres were trained to attack it in various ways. There were dogs found, according to the NIA charge sheet. There were dogs found which tail was cut, body had chopped, had wounds of swords on it. So they were all practicing aggressive maneuvers on animals and on human effigy.
One of the big charges against the PFI is that it keeps a ready cadre of volunteers and trained people to carry out physical actions of violence. Now that is where it becomes very, very serious. Pradeep Pillai is our editor from News 18 Kerala. And Pradeep, I'm sure, you know, in Kerala, as Vivek was also mentioning, is the biggest impact of the PFI crackdown, because that's where they've been spreading their wings. But in recent times, they've spread to as many as 23 states that they themselves boast about. Talk to me about the impact that the PFI has had in recent times in vitiating the atmosphere in Kerala first, and then from there on the rest of the country.
Tony, we've come across several documents, several training documents, their constitution and the way they brief their cadre to enable them to train themselves, equip themselves. So one of the motives is to instill fear in the minds of enemies, quote unquote. Enemies as they see it. They see enemies in the judiciary, they see enemies in the media, they see enemies in the executive as well. Now, several of their parades were intended to create and instill the fear aspect into those who could oppose them, either ideologically or politically. That's one part. I must say they have succeeded to a large extent on that. And as Vivek has been pointing out, in spite of one-off events, in spite of repeated incidents of training camps being busted, the shocking case of the professor's hand being chopped because he adapted a paragraph from a book and put it into the question paper. Even after all this, we have seen a soft attitude, a soft approach by the both the left and the Congress-led UDF governments that came to rule the state over the last few years or decades. Now, further to this, of course, we have seen action being taken, cases being registered when we have seen this provocative slogans being put out by a young, small boy. And such cases, the public pressure, the media pressure forced them to take cases. But there has been and never been an initiative from the left or the UDF government to take action or to restrain.
I think it also worked out politically very well, because you could always blame the center for not doing enough. This is ultimately a matter of national security, and it became a back and forth. I've had several of those debates, for example, on this show, and every time the opposition leaders will say, if the PFI is so bad, why don't you ban them? But I'll keep that away for a while. It's safe to say, Nikhil, that the PFI has been given a long rope in that time the PFI role in Karnataka that you cover has grown, isn't it, over the last few days, last few years? There have been 2 recent murders in which PFI role has come to light. Nikhil, that was for you. Could you hear me?
I can hear you now. So are you repeating that?
I'm saying in the last few years, we've seen dangerously the PFI role from Kerala, Tamil Nadu expand to Karnataka, where recently in a couple of murders too, their role has come to light.
Well, I'll give you 3 examples in the form of 3 cases. Let's talk about an instance that exposes the mindset. And also let's talk about political opportunism that has saved this organization thus far. The 3 cases are that of Prashant Pujari in Mudabidre, that of Rudresh in the heart of the IT city, the capital of Karnataka in Bengaluru, and then the more recent case of Praveen Nettaru's killing on the 26th of July 2022. In the case of Prashant Pujari, the hacking which happened in connection to illegal cattle smuggling and the scuffle that broke out, 13 people arrested, all of them members of the PFI, most of them active. Talk about the case in Bangalore, Rudresh. The district president, Asim Sharif, was arrested in that particular case. Why was he hacked? Because he was societally trying to bring some votes to the party that he wanted to. And then we talk about BJP youth leader Praveen Nettaru's killing. 6 people arrested before the NIA was handed over the case. All 6 are members of the PFI. What was the reason? He probably stood for his opinion on halal and non-halal kind of a situation that had broken out in Karnataka.
And cow slaughter, I think he worked against cow slaughter in his area.
That's right, which is what I'm saying. So it was about non-halal and he was also anti-cow slaughter and then they killed him. The NIA came out with a charge sheet. In the charge sheet, they have very clearly mentioned that the idea was to create fear in the society. Let's talk about the mindset now, Shivani. When the then Vice President, Mr. Hamid Ansari, visited a PFI conference in Kerala, it was also addressed by one Mr. Rasool, who spoke about how he glorified the PFI in the first place. Then he spoke about how with a 3% Muslim population in South Africa, they had 13% representation in the parliament. Why can't that happen in India? Of course that can happen in India, but that shouldn't be the mindset. If at all that needs to happen, and increased representation should happen in a constitutional and legal manner, not by creating fear, not by creating disharmony in the society. Let's talk about political opportunism that has saved this organization. Uman Chandy, who was a Congress Chief Minister in Kerala, submits to the Kerala High Court that PFI is nothing but a reincarnation of Simi. What was Simi known for? We all know it. Let's not waste time going over it again. What happens in Karnataka during the Congress rule? More than 1,000 PFI accused persons have been relieved of their cases and all the allegations. What were the cases? It was that of rioting. Why did the rioting happen? Because a Taslima Nasreen article was translated in a Kannada daily and it was published. The towns of Shimoga and Hassan were nearly locked down because people wanted to riot about a certain article that was published in a paper.
Precisely.
So there are these 3 things.
Muslim
you look at
issues,
the political
and in the garb of
it.
Muslim identity issues, that's really the crux of this, that the PFI tries to heighten existing social tensions. And clearly over the last few years, it is clear with the kind of agitations that they were at the front of, it was all about Muslim identity, creating this us versus them scenario. I do thank all of my colleagues for joining us, and you've set up my debate coming up. But before that, there is some more exclusive input coming in. This is part 3 of our ongoing investigations into the workings of the PFI and why they've been on the agency's radar. Now take a look at the PFI web strategy as agencies have decoded. The PFI maintains a strong presence online and tries to brainwash innocent youths is the charge that they are facing. But we're also learning that the PFI, while it has a strong presence online, it also very cleverly handles its social media presence. Their main aim is to incite Muslim sentiments against the government and bodies like the BJP and the RSS. A lot of their leadership tweets around this area, around the center, etc. And in furthering the narrative of Muslim suppression, especially in BJP-ruled states. So they'll take up issues in Uttar Pradesh, etc. The PFI is clever to not openly profess jihad, but it furthers it as a last resort, especially by telling ordinary Muslims that they are being suppressed. So basically, they push them towards violent jihad. The senior leadership, though, doesn't post inflammatory content from their own handles. They either repost or promote other contents with sensitive material. And a lot of those handles, what we've been told by the agencies is, that they are created few hours before they make a post, and then these handles lie inactive afterwards. That's exclusive input coming in from our senior editor Manoj Gupta. My colleague Ashish continues to be with us. Ashish, we have seen this. We've all seen this, isn't it? Because some of their top hierarchy names are not the biggest rabble-rousers on the internet. They're very clever about what they say and how they are seen, because they don't want to invite agency action. But I was looking at snapshots of their tweets in recent times. It is pure identity politics and us versus them politics.
So, Shivani, it's basically a well-structured organization. Manoj has also shared some other details. It talks about at least, 15 organizations which basically work in tandem with PFI, and these are called Campus Front of India, National Women Front of India, All India Imam Council Religious Wing, Darul Kharda. In fact, they have an organization for the kids as well. It's named Junior Friends of India Kids Wing. SDPI, we all know about it, Satya Sarani. All these organizations work in tandem, so they are basically creating a face where they're trying to show that they are basically doing work for the society. But at the same time, it is the other identity is that they are trying to create an atmosphere which is not conducive for the country. They're trying to show to the Muslims that they are suppressed. They need to come forward and they need to fight the current government. That kind of atmosphere. But looking at the funding, that is something really to worry about. There are at least 6 to 7 NGOs in India which are funding. It's not only about funding that is coming from various Gulf countries or from donations coming from individuals. There are certain NGOs as well, which include Darul Ulema Saklani, Sunni Student Foundation, Sayyid Amir Thangal. So there are at least 6-7 NGOs which have come under the radar of NIA and ED, where the money is coming from. So it is basically two faces of this organization, where on the one face they try to show that they are doing some good work for the society, but at the same time they are trying to create unrest. That is what the NIA and ED is looking at.
Ashish, I thank you for breaking down those details for us. Time for the big debate on whether a ban is next for the PFI. Joining us on the show, Tushar Gupta is Senior Editor, Swarajya Magazine, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow, Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, Maulana Masoodul Hasan Kazmi is an Islamic scholar, Arvind Kumar Jain is former UP DGP, Anurag Bhadoria is the SP National Spokesperson. Anurag, one of my colleagues were earlier mentioned about the long rope that has been given and the soft approach by certain political parties against the PFI. I begin by asking you, what is the Samajwadi Party take and stand on the PFI crackdown? Because I believe many times even you have asked for a strong crackdown on this body.
मुझे अभी तक एक बात समझ में नहीं आई कि हाथरस का जब कांड हुआ उस समय सरकार ने कहा इसमें पीएफआई के लोगों का हाथ है. उसने कुछ पीएफआई के लोगों को अरेस्ट भी किया. तो मैं सरकार से पूछना चाहता हूं, फिर उस समय आपने पीएफआई पे बैन क्यों नहीं लगाया? क्यों आपने पीएफआई को उस समय छोड़ दिया? पीएफआई के लिए आपने काम क्यों नहीं किया? क्या सरकार इंतजार करती है चुनाव आएगा, चुनाव का वक्त आएगा, कुछ राज्यों में चुनाव आएंगे तो दोबारा से इस पर कार्रवाई होगी? तो इसके मतलब सरकार की नीयत पे शक हो रहा है. तो सरकार ने कार्रवाई क्यों नहीं की थी उस समय जब सरकार को पता चल गया कि कई ऐसे इंसिडेंट हुए? अरे सारे चुनाव अभी चुनाव गुजरात में होने वाले हैं, कई स्टेट में चुनाव आ रहे हैं ना.
पर आप खुद ही कह रहे हैं ना कि स्टेट में चुनाव तो हर साल होते हैं. उस लॉजिक से तो किसी भी साल कोई क्रैकडाउन नहीं हो सकता.
तो वही मैं कह रहा हूँ. तो सरकार, मेरी बात तो सुन लीजिए, मेरी बात सुन लीजिए. मैं वही कह रहा हूँ कि सरकार क्या इंतजार करती रहती है? सरकार को क्यों नहीं उस समय कार्रवाई की सरकार ने, जब सरकार को पता चल गया था कि इसमें पीएफआई के लोगों का हाथ है? और ऐसे कई इंसिडेंट हुए जिसमें सरकार ने कहा है कि इसमें पीएफआई के लोगों का हाथ है. तो आपने, मेरी बात सुनने की कोशिश कीजिए, आपने उस समय इस तरह की कार्रवाई क्यों नहीं की? क्या आप पीएफआई अगर देश के लिए कोई भी पार्टी,
अच्छा तो आपका मेन प्रॉब्लम ये है कि उस वक्त क्यों नहीं करी? बट क्या मैं आपका रिस्पांस इस चीज पे जान सकती हूँ कि आप ये कार्रवाई वेलकम करते हैं या नहीं करते हैं?
मैं तो कह रहा हूं कि देश के लिए कोई भी पार्टी, कोई व्यक्ति अगर देश के लिए खतरा होता है तो सरकार उस पर कार्रवाई क्यों नहीं करती है? क्यों इस पे बैन करती है?
पे कोई स्टेटमेंट है क्या? जिस तरह की एक्टिविटीज पीएफआई के नाम से जुड़ी हुई हैं, आप उनको कंडेम करते हुए क्यों नहीं नजर आते? ये बात तो ठीक है कि गवर्नमेंट एक्शन क्यों नहीं लेती, वो एक सवाल है. लेकिन आपका क्या है स्टैंड पीएफआई पे?
तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कोई भी व्यक्ति,
कोई भी व्यक्ति नहीं,
मैं
PFI पे बात
PFI
कीजिए।
क्यों? मैं कहता हूं
Don't
कोई
generalize
भी-
it. Let's talk about PFI.
अरे मैं सबकी बात कर रहा हूं, मैं
नहीं,
भी
सबकी
क्यों?
नहीं,
अरे मेरी
PFI पे बात
सुनिए।
कीजिए।
हाँ अरे मेरी बात सुन लीजिए। अच्छा मैं बोल लूं, मैंने कहा कोई भी व्यक्ति, मैं ही क्यों ना हूं, अगर
मैं वो नहीं पूछ रही हूँ आपसे सवाल, मैं PFI पे पूछ रही हूँ आपसे सवाल।
अगर राष्ट्र के लिए कोई, अरे मैं बोल तो रहा हूं आपको, PFI के लेके सारे ही
नहीं,
जिसकी वजह से राष्ट्र खतरे में हो।
I don't understand this tendency to broad base it to everybody else. Let's talk about PFI, no? आप उसको broad base क्यों कर रहे हैं? Generalize क्यों कर रहे हैं? PFI के मुद्दे पे बात कीजिए। जिस तरह के एजिटेशन, जिस तरह के वायलेंस, हजार तो राइटिंग इंडिया में PFI के और SDPI के लोग उसमें सामने आते हैं। I am just asking you a simple question. Do you welcome the crackdown on PFI or not? Not on anybody who works against the country, on PFI.
आपको एजेंडा चलाना है, मेरी बात सुनिए।
एजेंडा क्या है इसमें?
आपको एजेंडा चलाना है, मेरी बात सुनिए। आपने सवाल पूछा, मैं जवाब दे रहा हूं। मैं जवाब दे रहा हूं, आप बराबर बोलोगे मेरे बीच में।
बताइए ना, PFI पे बोलिए।
हो या अनुराग भदौरिया हो, कोई भी हो। अरे यार मेरी बात ही नहीं सुन रहे, कमाल के आप है भाई। मैं कह रहा हूं PFI हो या अनुराग भदौरिया, कोई व्यक्ति हो, अगर राष्ट्र के लिए नुकसान करता है तो उसमें बैन हो जाना चाहिए।
अच्छा।
लेकिन सरकार ने क्यों नहीं बैन किया आज तक? मैं ये पूछ रहा हूं कि सरकार ऐसा क्यों नहीं करती है? अगर PFI राष्ट्र के लिए खतरा है तो सरकार ने इस पे अब तक कदम क्यों नहीं उठाया?
आज तो आप खुश होंगे ना, मैं तो वही पूछ रही हूँ।
आपको डिबेट करने
ये तो क्लियर लग रहा है कि जिस तरह का क्रैकडाउन हुआ है उसके बाद तो बैन आने वाला है, उनकी सारी लीडरशिप को अरेस्ट कर लिया, तो आज तो आप खुश होंगे ना?
मैं कह रहा हूं, मैं आपसे कह रहा हूं, मैं तो आपसे कह रहा हूं, इतने सालों से यही तो कर रही है भारतीय जनता पार्टी। क्या मैं पूछना चाहता हूं।
अच्छा।
आज तक क्या किया है? बताएं उसने क्या किया आज तक? भाई हमेशा डिबेट तो होती है। हथरस के समय भी डिबेट हुई थी।
हाँ।
इसके पहले भी जब केरला में हुआ था तब भी डिबेट हुई थी, लेकिन उसका रिजल्ट क्या था? आप बताइए रिजल्ट क्या था? तब भी आप ऐसे चिल्ला रहे थे।
अनुराग भदौरिया, you want a ban on the PFI? Have I got it right? ये तो मेरा एजेंडा नहीं है, आप PFI पे बैन चाह रहे हैं ना?
मैं तो कहता हूं राष्ट्र के लिए कोई भी चीज, चाहे PFI हो चाहे कोई व्यक्ति हो, अगर राष्ट्र के लिए खतरा है तो सरकार को उस पर कार्रवाई करनी चाहिए।
मुझे ये नहीं समझ में आता, आप ये क्यों नहीं बोल पा रहे हो कि PFI को बैन करना चाहिए? अगर मगर क्यों? Tushar Gupta, I want to come to you because I knew exactly this was going to happen. In countless debates this has happened. The state governments or state parties, regional parties, opposition parties to the BJP will say, if they are so bad, why don't you do something? Now the scenario has changed. Today the government has acted. This is a crackdown mounted by the NIA across the country. The entire leadership has been arrested. Do you feel, one, the government has come true to the questions that were being posed to it by opposition leaders like Anurag Bhadoria and others? And secondly, do you believe a ban is next?
Shivani, you know, the problem with the spokespersons of the Samajwadi Party is if the government doesn't do anything, they'll doubt the government's kabiliyat. If the government does something, they'll doubt the government's niyat. And if they end up convicting the PFI people, they'll question the karwai itself. But having said that, PFI has been like a cult. It has been like a cult, you know, one of those cut one head and more shall take its place, that kind of a cult. They have been involved everywhere, from Bihar to Kerala to the Delhi CA riots, everywhere. But it's not more just political question. The question was also about the funding. Where is the money coming from? Because this organization is virtually everywhere. Any anti-national activity, you have PFI involvement. And I must complete your channel, your coverage, which has been on it for a while now. So the question now before the government is, how do you ensure that the funds stop coming in? Because it's not about arresting one leader today. They'll come up 10 leaders tomorrow. They'll print 100 leaders day after tomorrow. The question is, how do you seize the funding? How do you ensure that all the network where the money is being channeled into India, into the activities of the PFI, that needs to be stopped. Of course, there is no doubt that the government should ban PFI. But more important than that today should not be the last day of when PFI has been investigated, and I'm sure it's not. But more important than banning the PFI is ensuring that no more money flows into the PFI.
Right. So, on the ban issue, I'm going to go across to a couple of our experts. But AK Jain, I'm coming to you first up. On the crackdown itself, we see crackdowns happening in dribs and drabs that has happened against the PFI in the past. But the kind of crackdown that has happened today, it seems it has come from the sense that these organizations are quick to regroup, or they abscond, then they remorphize into something else, as it happened with Simi and Indian Mujahideen, etc. So they don't want to give that chance to the cadre currently. Do you believe that in the kind of crackdown the agency have done, across 15 states, over 100 people arrested, certainly the entire top leadership, they will be able to contain the regrouping of these cadres going on from here, even if imminently there's a ban coming up?
No, it's very difficult to say that they will be able to contain it. Continuous action is required. Continuous surveillance is required in all the states. Initially, SIMI started from UP, Bahraich. Gradually, it started spreading to other states also. Then SIMI turned into PFI. PFI was initially very powerful in Kerala. We used to hear that PFI is very active in Kerala. Gradually, because no action was taken against PFI, it has spread to so many states, including UP, Assam, Bihar. They have come to northern India also. So today's crackdown will naturally have a lot of impact, but central government will have to continue with the efforts. NIA, ED, all these agencies, all central agencies, IB, ATS of the states, state police forces, they will all have to chip in, and only then this organization will be able to control this organization. Otherwise, it has spread like anything in the last few years. So action, in my opinion, is already...
You're saying that even though they've swept the rug under the feet of the PFI, first of all, would you say that they've managed to do that? And if they have managed to do that, this cannot end here. It will still need consistent crackdowns to completely bury this organization.
Yes, continuous efforts are required, and Herculean efforts are required by all the organizations, because PFI has grown very big in recent times.
And they seem to have a lot of cadre and sympathizers overseas as well, in the Middle East apparently. A lot of their money, funding, etc., but a lot of their people are also associated in the Middle East. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, I want to bring you into this. Do you believe that this crackdown has been, the scale has been managed well? We've all been wanting a crackdown of this kind. In that, the agency has done well. Whether a ban is coming up next or not, I'll leave it for another minute. But do you believe that this is indeed the only way, the best way the agency could have gone about it? That in one sweeping action, you come crashing down across the national network?
Absolutely. Look, the problem here always was that the organization is so wide and it morphs and mutates. See, it's borrowed the Pakistan model, where, every time there's a UN sanction on one organization, it morphs as something else, right? And they raise funds under a different name, etc. And they have a military wing and a civilian wing, kind of like, the Irish Republican Army and Sinn Féin, which was the political wing sort of thing. They've perfected this. They've learned that it is in diversity that strength lies. And so they have a diverse, alphabet soup of different organizations that keep coming up with exactly zero diversity of ideology, essentially a multi-headed hydra. So you needed these multiple raids and things like that to happen simultaneously in order to get them at the game. But this brings us to the second point, the ban. Now remember, the Supreme Court isn't very tolerant of bans going around left, right and center like that. Because, the problem here is you tread very dangerous territory. When are you banning political dissent and when are you not? And as a rule, the Supreme Court has been very intolerant of bans if you can't back it up. So as a first step, you needed to have these raids in order to collect. There is already enough evidence but you needed a further quantum of evidence, which will come through the seizure of documents, wiretaps, etc., 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 which is exactly why you need the raid. It is the precursor to the ban. You simply can't just ban an organization because you feel it is so. You need clinching evidence, and that is why you needed to go collect this. So this is the first step in a ban. It will ultimately eventuate in a ban. Now, the Indian public and even the Supreme Court tends to be very accepting of bans if there is a crisis. So, for example, if another Mumbai 26/11 style attack happens, they will accept some kind of a blanket ban. Though in about 2-3 years, they'll even overturn it. The thing is, you can't allow for that to happen. See? So you have to show linkages. You have to do your homework to prevent the morphing, like a previous panelist said.
So how do you do that? I was going to come to exactly that. This is still homegrown terror. From the SIMI to the PFI today, the ideology never dies, right? So what do we do against the ideology?
Exactly. So see, the ideology, the problem is, It originates elsewhere. And because we live in a globalized world with so much tracking, Al-Qaeda used to do this in the, even before the internet was very popular, they used to do this through the dark web. It required a great level of expertise to get into the dark web. Today, there's like online radicalization modules, which you can even get on YouTube, right? So it's very difficult to curb the radicalization. What we can do is prevent people from skipping the net or evading the net by saying, oh, we are not associated with them. Maybe there were one or two rotten apples out there, but the rest of us were not rotten apples. And therefore, you can't ban all of us and then start up a new organization. Because like we know, PFI is basically semi-reformed.
Yeah.
So you needed all this evidence of showing interlinkages, of connections, of, a sort of mental meeting of minds, essentially unity in radicalization, despite diversity in names and organization.
Yeah, in the PFI umbrella itself, there's a women's wing, there's a media wing, there is a campus wing, there is a health center, there is a charity body, there is a human rights body. I mean, we just ran that web. So, it's a very cleverly orchestrated, multi-body kind of a web. And they also, of course, have a web of what kind of actions they take in different states. They've been very clever in the way they have established themselves in the minds of the public and even in the news cycle over the last couple of years. Very quickly, Abhijit, before I go to Maulana Kazmi.
And just to remember, when SIMI was banned, even before it was banned, it had created these splinter organizations. Remember, PFI itself was created in 2007 when three separate organizations only in name, united in purpose and in leadership, which were called the National Democratic Front in Kerala, the Karnataka Forum for Dignity, and the Manidanidi Pasarai in Tamil Nadu. They were united into one to create this. And somehow to give it a sort of southern regional view, it pretended it was somehow different from the northern wings and things like that. And we all know that's not the case. So you have to find the proof for the ban. Otherwise, the ban won't stick in court.
Yes, we actually did run that breakup of how that transformation from SIMI to NDF to all of these organizations, the SIMI offshoots and etc. took place. We can run that one more time on our screen. But that brings me to Maulana Kazmi. Maulana Kazmi, some of the activities that the PFI has been indulging in and has been found to be indulging in various raids recently in Nizamabad is training young Muslim youth to carry out terror attacks in the garb of physical training or karate classes, and in weapons training, in arms training. There was even a bomb factory, etc. Would you say that the PFI had indeed become a danger to the Muslim youth themselves in this country? And do you welcome the crackdown on the PFI?
Shivani, the safety and security of the country should be paramount for any true Indian. I am using word any true Indian. And we are among those who say the safety and security and country is first for us. So, we welcome the raids. We also say that people who want to destabilize this country, they should be crushed and they should be booked. Harshest action should be taken against such elements. And being an Islamic scholar, from the very beginning, when these people coped the hands of a professor simply for setting up a paper against Islam, we are demanding the ban on this organization. But on the other hand, I also expect from my Hindu brothers, from my beloved Hindu religious people to come out against people of Dharam Sansad, who openly says for the genocide of the Muslim, to come out for the people who make sloganeering, ye kaate jayenge, Ram Ram chillaenge. And we are too in favor to punish people who say the Sartan Juda. But I also want from my beloved Hindu brother to come out, because without coming together against the hatred factories, against the people who want to destabilize my country, we will not be successful.
So कासमी जी, आपको नहीं लगता कि धर्म संसद की जो आपने बात करी, तो उनका जितना condemnation होता है उतना ही PFI का होता है? ऐसा तो नहीं है कि उनका condemnation नहीं होता?
No. बात ये है कि action should also be taken against all the elements
But sir,
who
उनके जो
are
धर्म
here
संसद की
to
जो आप बात कर रहे हैं
destabilize
उसके
the
तो लोगों
country.
को अरेस्ट किए, अंदर डाला है, उनके ऊपर केसेस चल रहे हैं.
ऐसा देखिए, ऐसा है, अब भी हो रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है. हर रात दिन पीपल आर competing each other in communalization, in spreading hatred, in spreading hate speech.
Okay, but I get your point, and I take your point. I take your point. The responsibility lies on both sides. But Maulana Kazmi, there is a difference between, elements in society creating disharmony and an organized factory, whose entire aim is to spread terror by committing murders in daylight. ये PFI टाइप का जो मॉडल है ना, वो मार्केट्स में जा जाके लोगों का कत्ल कर रहे थे with the sole intention of creating terror in society. Bomb training, weapons training, पूरा कार्डर ये लोग कर रहे थे. So that's a different level of radicalization. That's waging war against the country. Spreading hatred among sections is of course a different kind of crime, and I'm not diminishing it. But I'm saying let's not compare it to what the PFI is accused of.
Shivani ji, we say we have to protect this country at any cost, at any condition. We have to protect our country, our nation, the people of our nation, the beloved people of this great nation. So मेरा कहना ये है, PFI पे आपने एक्शन लिया, लीजिए, पहले इन पे लीजिए, बट और दूसरे सेक्शन के लोगों को पर भी आपको you have to tighten screw of such elements among other communities.
Can I just invite Tushar Gupta to respond to that? What Maulana Kazmi is saying, that it cannot be action on one side alone, hatred is flowing from the other side too.
Shivani, this is what happens, every time, and I remember from the last 1 year, a debate has happened on PFI. Suddenly, everyone is interested on the hatred on the other side, on other issues of economic importance. Why can't people acknowledge that within us, within this country, not even an external threat, within this country, there is an entire organization, very well oiled, that is willing to take down the country itself, that is willing to take down the state. It's not even political anymore. They want to take down the entire state machinery. Yet the people do not want to call out the PFI for what it is. Anurag Bhadoria ji here wants to say, I cannot call out the PFI alone. Maulana ji here says, I cannot call out the PFI alone without calling out the hatred on the other side. He wants to talk about the other side.
We condemn PFI and we welcome the government action against PFI. We welcome the government action.
I think Maulana Kazmi is being more categorical than Anurag Bhadoria. Let's give him that much credit.
Shivani, we are almost told that there is this other side.
Yeah, I know. There is this balancing that needs to be done, which I find a little problematic, because I don't think there is any Hindu organization which is at the level of what the PFI was, or what it is accused of. Tomorrow, if there is a group of individuals who are accused of training arms, bombs, weapons, waging war against the country, involved in hackings, killings, terror, inducing incidents, then all for it. I don't think there is a parallel organization like this. And let's not forget that PFI comes from Simi. It hasn't really just erupted because of recent hate in 2014. So that political argument also doesn't stand here. Anurag Bhadoria, I have 20 seconds for you.
मैं बोलूं, मुझे लगता है शिवानी जी आप परेशान हैं. सबने बोला कि PFI के ऊपर एक्शन होना चाहिए, इसीलिए आप बोल रही हैं. नहीं, ये लोग नहीं बोल रहे हैं. आप क्यों परेशान हैं? सबने बोला PFI पे एक्शन होना चाहिए, इस पे बैन होना चाहिए. फिर सरकार क्या कर रही थी? ये फंडिंग आ रही है, सरकार को पता नहीं चलता. इंटरनेशनल फंडिंग आ रही है, सरकार न्यूज बनाने के लिए है. ये इस तरह की एक्टिविटी जो हो रही है, सरकार को पता ही नहीं चलता. सरकार को पता चलता है 5-6 साल बाद. फिर सरकार क्या करती है, किस लिए है? आपके इंटेलिजेंस डिपार्टमेंट क्या करता है?
बनाने में थोड़ा बहुत टाइम लग जाता है.
पता चलता है. इसके मतलब सरकार निकम्मी है. सरकार करना नहीं चाहती. सरकार को ये एक्टिविटीज होने के पहले ही पकड़ना चाहिए था, लेकिन जब सारी एक्टिविटीज हो जाती हैं फिर सरकार आती है. इसके मतलब ये जो बीजेपी की सरकार है ये निकम्मी है, ये कुछ नहीं कर सकती है. इस तरह के जो लोग हैं उनको मुझे लगता है बीजेपी की सरकार ही पनाह देती है कि आओ जब कुछ हो जाएगा फिर हम आएंगे न्यूज बनाने के लिए. ये बीजेपी की, मैं तो बीजेपी पर सवाल उठाता हूं, सरकार क्या करती है? सरकार की कोई जिम्मेदारी नहीं है. सरकार नहीं, उत्तर प्रदेश में बीजेपी की सरकार, सेंट्रल में बीजेपी की सरकार. फिर ये PFI वाले कैसे एक्टिव हो जाते हैं, कैसे इनका फंड आ जाता है, फिर बैंक में पैसा कैसे आ जाता है, इंटरनेशनल फंडिंग कैसे आ जाती है, फिर सरकार इंतजार करती है, फंड आ जाएगा उसके बाद हम आएंगे. कमाल की बात है.
Shivani, the problem with people like Anurag Bhadoria is rattled because probably he sees the vote bank slipping away.
पहुंचाएगी तो उस पर कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए।
अनुराग जी चुप रहिए,
सरकार को काम नहीं करना चाहती।
तुषार, I have limited time. Go ahead. अनुराग जी रुक जाइए अब।
शिवानी, the problem is
आप बोलिए सरकार बीजेपी की सरकार नहीं पकड़ पाती है। आप बोलिए बीजेपी की इंटेलिजेंस डिपार्टमेंट फेल हो गया है। आप बोलिए बैंक में पैसा आ रहा है, बीजेपी की सरकार नहीं पकड़ पाती है। आप बोलिए सरकार को कि सरकार यूजलेस है। सरकार
मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा अनुराग जी, आप इतना गुस्से में क्यों हैं? आज तो आपके लिए भी अच्छा दिन है ना। आप चाह रहे हैं एक्शन पीएफआई के अगेंस्ट एक्शन हो रहा है। आप इतने गुस्से में क्यों हैं आज? तुषार, आई हैव 10 seconds.
अरे फिर भी एक्शन होगा।
तुषार only.
That's why all this rattled. Because his vote bank is slipping away. He can't on national television for once say that it's good that the PFI is being acted against. Instead, he wants to blame the BJP. He is calling out several abuses for the BJP. My question to him is, what would he call himself? For he's defending the PFI here.
No, we have asked the questions on the central government as much as anybody else, that if PFI is involved in all of these activities, then why is there no action happening? But today the action has happened. So that question must stop now. We'll wait and see how this is followed up. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you the day's biggest stories. Stay with us.